podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Your name is Victor Kane. You are the most powerful supervillain on the planet. You are also incredibly rich, successful, and wickedly handsome. You'd think this would make you happy, but unfortunately you have no soul, and that makes you very angry. And when you are angry, which is most of the time, you fly around shooting powerful beams of energy at innocent people. Your biggest problem right now is that your city is suddenly full of superheroes. The other day, you were challenged to a duel by a large, hulking beast of a man who called himself Tough Nut. What kind of silly name is Tough Nut? He was gigantic and dumb, with two massive metal fists that looked very sloppy and homemade. But you accepted his challenge, mostly because you were bored that day, and of course you knew that you'd crush this gorilla with ease. But strangely, this gargantuan fool shrugged off your first couple attacks, and even blocked a couple of them with his big, beefy mitts. But you were barely trying, of course. So you started gaining power, collecting energy, and channeling even larger, extremely impressive attacks. But every time you gathered energy, this Tough Nut jerk would take a cheap shot at your perfectly constructed jaw. And every time you'd launch a super powerful attack, your signature attack, he'd block most of it with his arms or just absorb the whole blow. It was honestly infuriating, but you tried not to show it. So you figured that you would have to defeat him with your superior wit. You began focusing on building up other powers, using different moves, and hitting him with small flurries of attacks to throw him off balance. But of course, he remained quite balanced, and all the while he just sort of glared at you with that same dumb look on his face. And you stared back at him, and then you flew away. You've decided to call in some of your villainous friends for help. Not that you need their help, of course. You just don't feel like dealing with Tough Nut yourself. He's honestly just not worth your time. But if he crosses your path again, you'll be ready and still very handsome.
Did that sound familiar to you all? It didn't to me either. That is a new game that is on Kickstarter called KAPOW, a superhero buildable dice game. Let's rumble. And today we're lucky enough to have joining us Carl, who is the mastermind behind the game, or the designer, or where do you fit in line with KAPOW?
Yeah, nice to meet you, Lake, and thanks. So yeah, full transparency, part of a team of 3. So we are all co-designers, and we formed a nice little LLC called 2 Ton Porcupines. So we're all taking credit for this one together.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us on Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf tonight. Carl, how are you doing?
We're doing really well. You know, it's 11 o'clock Eastern time, but I surprisingly have a decent amount of energy, so I'm good.
Oh, good. Yeah, we really appreciate you. Yeah, sorry, it's kind of hard to get together, but that's okay. We're glad you made it. So let's see here. So let's go back a little bit before this. How did you get into board games?
Oh man, yeah, the classic question. I think I like to date that back to. I'm hoping you're familiar with the game Heroquest. You ever play that one?
I've vaguely heard of it, I think. I'm kind of new to board gaming. My wife, she was collecting them for a while there, and I kind of fell in love with the whole thing last year, to tell you the truth.
Oh, cool. All right, yeah. So Heroquest was the sort of more mainstream take on Dungeons and Dragons. It was honestly a total blast. And then, from there it was, I got hooked by Magic the Gathering, like a lot of people did, was big into card games. And then my family was always playing games too. So, all the sort of anything from Scrabble to big setback tournaments, we played a lot of card games. So it just has always sort of been there. And I've always been into gaming in one way or another. I'd say it wasn't until I met some of these other folks from the Connecticut area that I got really back into the board gaming scene specifically. That was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Cool beans. So at current time, besides KAPOW, of course, do you have a current favorite board game or a dice game, I guess?
Oh man, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, because we're working on KAPOW and because I have taken a liking to co-op games, I have a lot of a fanhood for Sentinels, which is the sort of co-op original IP that is also a superhero game. So I really like that. That's probably at the top of my list right now, along with some other co-op games. And then to be frank, I'm just doing so much prototyping and play testing that I haven't had a ton of time to play much else, just here and there.
Well, that's probably good for the people that will be back in this, because make sure it's been tested and whatnot. Sentinels, is that Sentinels of the Multiverse? I've heard somebody talk about it.
That is, yeah, exactly. So, again, it's what I like about it is that it's original IP. So it doesn't. They really did a great job of developing the universe on their own from scratch, rather than just taking what we're all, familiar and love from our childhood of the Marvel and DC comics. So it's a nice, unique twist.
So if they have so it's a superhero game then? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it is superhero co-op. So I think, the general idea is you have to team up against a villain and take them down.
Is that where your inspiration from KAPOW came from, or where did you guys get that from?
No, not so much mechanically, but definitely thematically. We thought, between the three of us, we were thinking, all right, the mechanics were solid, but very different than Sentinels. This is more of a, battle game, a dice battle game, of course. But from a thematic standpoint, we thought there was still a lot of room for comic book fans that wanted something a little bit different. So that's where the theme sort of emerged from.
Cool. So how many heroes would you say are in your game?
Oh man, good question. So right now we have 14 fully designed heroes. We have heroes and villains, I should say. It's 7 and 7. A lot of head-to-head sort of arch nemesis battles going on here. And then for full art, we're just about done with 6. So you can see 4 of them are fully done and released, and we got 2 more coming probably within the week.
Cool. And we're recording this well before, so maybe you'll have a little bit more before you guys end up launching. And so let's see here. It looks like this isn't your typical you roll a d6 and I roll a d6, or even a d10 and I roll a d10 and see who has a bigger number, is it?
No. In fact, when you start talking about dice like that, I actually have a disliking for dice. No, this is very different. So this is you have a dice pool that is shared, and everyone starts with dice, and then I think the most interesting thing is you have a lot of choice. When you roll the dice, you have to decide what to do with them. And then there's also the buildable dice mechanic, where we actually have that custom die that you can add faces to and take faces from. So yeah, it's a little bit more complex. I don't want to go through a whole how to play, but yeah, definitely a little bit different.
Well, no, that's fine. So what can you tell us about the buildable dice mechanic, though, if you don't mind?
Yeah, that's really what we love most about it. So you have to imagine with that superhero theme on top too, it really works. So the idea behind the buildable dice is that players start with those, and you can actually gain additional buildable dice over time. Some people, that are well into games have probably seen this in a couple of other games. The most recent one being Diceforge. There was another one called Rattlebones that had these dice, but basically they allow you to customize them by adding faces and taking faces off. So from a superhero standpoint, what you're doing is using dice to build your dice and add faces that strategically make the most sense to take down your opponent or pull off your special moves or whatever you need to do. So as you build your dice pool, you also can design the dice from scratch, which is a ton of fun.
Cool. Now I see on the Kickstarter page currently, I see about 5 different things you can put on your dice. Is there more than that, or?
Yeah, so those are the faces. So right now, those are the 5 main faces of the game, and then there's a wild, and then it's also blanks do have a role in the game. So I guess technically there's 7 total faces that kind of play a role, but those 5 symbols you see are the core ones. Yep.
Well, can you tell us about a couple of them, or do you have a favorite of the what do you call them? The different things of the dice, the different pictures on the dice. What do you call them again? I forget.
Yeah, so those are the faces or the power. So you've got things, those are like agility, defense, energy, might, and basically those faces align with the types of powers you can pull off. So typically the red and the yellow, the energy and the might, those are going to be used for offense. Then we have an X factor, which is used for things that build your hero and power them up typically. And then there's combinations of those things, and defense and agility typically help you avoid damage or block damage. And then each superhero has their own sort of special moves. But that's what each face has a slightly different role in the game.
Okay, cool. So I haven't played too many dice games. My kids are pretty crazy about King of Tokyo and whatnot, but it's kind of too crazy for me. But is this similar? Like we each have a handful of dice or whatnot, and you can pick what ones you use against each other or whatnot, and maybe re-roll and stuff.
Exactly. So it's a dice chucker in that sense that you each have your own pool of dice. Then you can also fight over a mutual pool of dice. You roll, you assign those rolls. You both sort of reveal when you're ready, and then you lift your screens and you reveal what you've done. And then at that point, you trade blows. That's sort of the battle per se.
Cool. Yeah, I want to say something. I saw something maybe about dealing with the '60s Batman or whatnot. Is that where KAPOW came from?
Yeah, we love to hark back to that. So definitely, we're using a lot of those old great comic book noises as much as we can.
Well, they're not copyrighted or anything like that?
You know what? I haven't looked into that, so maybe we should. But as far as I know, no.
And I know you didn't want to say doesn't necessarily how to play, but let's just in case somebody's listening to us and whatnot. And how would play look? Well, I guess this is a podcast after all. How would it sound? What would we be? Well, besides the clinking of dice and whatnot, how would your turn look and my turn? And how would it go down?
Yeah. I'll do it. I have a pretty good, quick way to talk about it. So imagine you guys, you sit down, your opponent, you both pick your hero and your villain. Okay, so typically it's hero versus villain. You sort of pick whoever you want. You sit down. Each of those heroes and villains, they have a unique set of powers assigned to their board. From there, what you're going to do is you're going to roll your dice, assign your dice behind the screen. You're going to then lift the screens and reveal what you've done. So that's how you sort of trade blows back and forth. But a big part of the game is growing your dice pool. So you want to sort of use your dice to grow the dice that you have and add faces. But the actual gameplay is really simple, which is great because it's really easy to teach. The games are between 20 and 40 minutes. But that's essentially it. You pick your hero, you sit down, you sort of learn the base boards. There's an attack board, a defense board, and a power-up board. And really what you do is you grab your dice and you start rolling. When you make your roll, you have to choose where to put them, choose how to power up, and then it's a battle to the death. So you each start with a health pool, and it's the first one to die.
Cool, bean. So the screens, so actual screens come with the game, I guess?
Oh yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's a big part of it because you're actually taking your turn simultaneously. You both roll at the same time and doing your dirty work per se behind the screen. So yeah, that's definitely it's in the box, no doubt.
Cool beans. Let's see here. So I for the life of me, I can't think of it. Every time I try to, it blows my mind. But my wife, she's been playing these Nintendo DS games. They're like a role-playing game. I know one of them is Awakening, one is Fates, and one is Echoes. But I can't remember the actual thing. But she does something called grinding. Is that what the you kept talking about building your dice pool? Is that kind of what that is similar to maybe?
All right, so yeah, I'm a video gamer as well, and grinding in the RPG sense means you're going out to sort of farm equipment. It's like doing a job per se, right? So in this sense, no, building your dice pool is actually an important part of the game. There is a mutual central dice pool that both people have to pull from. So if you're not doing that, you're probably not doing too well, and you will die quickly. So no, it's not a grind. It's sort of part of the game. You have the real tricky part is deciding how you grow your dice pool. Do you grab a red attack die? Do you grab a purple defense die? Do you grab a die that maybe has a good mix of both? Do you try to grab faces for your buildable die? So that's the growth I'm talking about. It's actually a huge part of the choice you have to deal with every time you place your dice.
So how does that go down? Like you say go, and then we both reach in the middle of the table to grab a dice really quick?
No, so whoever has less life at the time has what's called the first player token. The first player token has first choice over what dice they grab, which is a nice little advantage depending on what's left. And then they also get to attack first, which can be key at the end of the game. So basically underdog has that slight advantage. But you can also sort of strategically play with your life pool a little bit to get down lower than your opponent and then go in for that final blow or grab the last dice that you think is important. So that's a bit of a mechanic in itself.
Cool. So how many dice do end up coming with the game?
Oh man, you put me to the test here. I think it's I want to say 30 plus 6 custom die. But yeah, we'll nail that down. That'll be on the Kickstarter.
Cool beans. And then let's see. So you said. So do you have? Did I? No, I don't think I asked. Do you have a favorite hero that's already created out of there?
Oh man, yeah. My guys know that I'm a Tough Nut fan. So that little piece I wrote in the beginning was hard to write, but I tried to get some digs in there. Yeah, I like the guy with the big metal arms, mostly because of his play style.
Okay, so that's Tough Nut. Then he reminds me of some of like I can't place it, but like an '80s cartoon character.
Yeah, he's sort of got that blue collar feel too, which is fun. Yeah, he's just a sort of rough and tumble brawler. My style.
Cool. What about supervillains, or did you just pick a hero? That's all.
Yeah, my supervillain favorite right now is the one that's coming out next. Her name is Coquette, and she's just a nasty one to play against because she's draining you the whole time. She's finding ways to sort of get under your skin. So she's actually a blast to play.
Cool. So how does she drain you? What's her super, or I guess villain power, or whatever they call them?
Yeah, so they all have 4 unique powers. So a couple of her special ones involve, taking things away from you. I don't want to reveal too much, but yeah, she'll mess with your dice, and she'll mess with what you're able to do.
Cool beans. So let's see here. So is it let's see here. So is this you guys' first rodeo, or it looks like you might have created something previously?
Yeah, so between the 3 of us, we have a pretty long history. We all have published games in one way or another. So I actually was part of a team that published a CCG way back in the day. Actually, I was right out of college, and it was a blast during the big CCG boom back then. So I sort of got into it early. It was a lot of fun. A couple of my other partner, Larry, he has a published game called War Party, which is a full adventure style combat game. And then we also have a game coming out being published through Eagle Gryphon in next year. So I can't talk too much about that one, but we also have that one in our portfolio.
Well, will that be something we'll look for on the Kickstarters?
Yeah, I'm assuming the Eagle Gryphon game they'll run it on their end, and then for the other games, yeah, we have a couple in the hopper. So there'll be more after this. It was actually a hard decision to decide what was coming out first, but KAPOW seemed like the best way to lead
Cool.
out.
Well, besides the Eagle Gryphon game, is there any other, maybe like you could share some dirt that hasn't been shared elsewhere? What might be next, or it's hard to choose?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I have a work in progress going on the Board Game Geek page for a very heavily asymmetric game called Town Square. I played a game called Vast, which came out I think about I want to say a year or 2 ago. Vast, the Crystal Caverns, which is a very asymmetric game where you can play. It's a dungeon crawler, but you get to play as every role, and every role is a different win condition. I was really taken by it from a design perspective. So another project that I'm hard at work on right now in between KAPOW is called Town Square, and I'm sort of trying to up the game of asymmetry. And the game's theme is essentially that you play shopkeepers in a town fighting over customers, and every shopkeeper has an entirely different game that they play to run their shop. So that's on Board Game Geek. I'm just sort of doing a work in progress to get feedback from folks, and it's going really well.
You'll have to make sure you give me the link, and I can leave it on the show notes. That sounds really cool. It reminds me of my kids aren't really into it, but I was trying to get into the new VeggieTales they have on Netflix. VeggieTales in the house, no, in the town or something like that, and so one of the first 1 or 2 episodes, they actually had something similar. There was Paul Grape, he had his shop, and then there was another guy that opened a burger stand, and he ended up losing to Paul Grape or whatnot because he was trying to get people in and out and whatnot, but it reminds me kind of that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's got that, and that shop feel, and I love turning the tables. And actually, you don't get to play the hero; you have to sell things to the hero. So I like the role reversal too of having to be the sort of NPC per se.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued. So are we gonna get that from 2-Ton Porcupine though? Whenever you guys decide to do that one, is that where it's coming from?
Right now, that seems to be the way it's headed. Right. So yeah, check out the link. It's that is probably where it's going to end up being at the moment, unless something dramatic were to appear in my inbox.
Oh boy. Well, we'll just be quiet about that probably. That's pretty cool. So,
right.
Per se, somebody fell asleep at the wheel, and I don't know why they would, but probably because of my voice, not because of this awesome new game you're working on. But suddenly they're awake as they didn't want to run off the road or off the mountain or wherever they're driving, and they suddenly hear us. Should they take a chance on this game, especially with all the games that there are there on the Kickstarters?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I think the main thing we love about KAPOW is that it still carries a lot of the great things that a good dice battle game has, but it does something different with the buildable dice. I'm of course a bit biased, but I think this is one of the best applications of buildable dice that I've seen out there so far, and I'd say there's probably room for more design growth on that front. So you've got a really good, simple to learn game that's high action, that plays in about 20 to 30 minutes, that you could play with your kid. I play this with my 8-year-old. But you can also get really competitive. So I think if you have that sort of tournament style bug in you and you want to get competitive, you can. But it's just a good romp. It can be either a filler game that you get a couple rounds in with your buddy, or it can be something more competitive. So I think that's my pitch.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first. Well, probably not, but one of the first places on Getting Geeky with Game Relief, so that's good. Now let's see. So you say you do it different than other dice builders. Like what you said, Diceforge. You mentioned that. If I recall, I talked to somebody recently. Is that from the same guy that did Seasons and like Lords of Zidit?
I think it's an Asmodee
game.
I
think those are Asmodee games.
Yeah. Right. So I honestly haven't played that game. I've only sort of watched a bunch of how to play videos. So I know that their dice, I think, are more based around the currency in the game and gaining currency and gaining resources. So it's a bit different of an application. Still very cool, and I'm glad people are iterating on it. But yeah, I actually haven't played it myself, so I can't speak too heavily on it. Well, there you go.
So according to like watching the videos or ones you might have played or whatnot, what did you guys do differently that others didn't?
Yeah, I just think the way that you roll and place your dice in terms of making an attack and making a defense and then growing the dice pool. So I don't believe that's in Diceforge. I don't believe that's how the mechanics work. This is all about you 1v1 versus an opponent in most of the game formats. So as far as I can tell, they don't use it in a sort of attack, defend, power-up mechanic. They use it more for a resource mechanic.
Oh, okay, cool. And so I know it's kind of a work in progress until you launch, and you're launching the 1st of November, is that right?
Yeah, the date is 11/1. Yep, November 1st.
And so if somebody's listening to this later on after that, how long will this campaign be running?
It'll be the standard 30 days, I think. The only stipulation would be if we extend it, I think, a day or two, just to avoid the sort of Thanksgiving holiday. But it's essentially going to be a 30-day campaign.
Okay, cool beans. And I know you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. When do you anticipate people might be getting their games?
Yeah, I would say it's a fairly typical Kickstarter turnaround time. Within the year of it, hopefully being fully backed would be my best estimate. But yeah, you're right. You don't want to go out on a limb and say anything faster at this point, right? Because I don't want to overpromise. But yeah, the art is well underway. The graphics are all done. A lot of the sort of major milestones are already in place. I'd say the one thing that could take a little bit of time is getting the mold done on the dice and just making sure it works really well, in terms of the faces fastening properly and everything. But yeah, that mold's already been made and it works, so we feel like we have most of the main stuff done already.
Well, there you go, cool. And it looks like there's going to be a place for reviews, and I imagine there's going to be playthrough videos. Who do you have doing reviews and videos that you might be able to tell us?
Yeah, definitely. There's some coming out. I think the only one that's out right now, I believe, is by Just Got Played. We have Unfiltered Gamer looking at it. Undead Vikings taking a look as we speak. Cloak and Meeple is doing one. Board Game Brawl is going to do a preview. And there's a really cool new group called Board Game Exposure, which I found through Facebook. They're a pretty cool, unique way of doing things out in the UK. You send them your game, which does cost a bit of money to get it overseas, but what's nice is that they actually circulate it through 2 to 5 other reviewers in their sort of network. So we were really happy to meet them, and they've been really cool. We got our game out to the UK, and then they have a couple of people looking at it over there.
Well, there you go. Cool. And those will be, will there be links, or will there be actual videos there on your Kickstarter page when it goes live?
Yeah, definitely. We have to populate the Kickstarter page, and we got to populate the Board Game Geek page as those reviews come up. And yeah, we're gonna do our best to circulate them.
Cool beans. So jumping into our next section of the podcast, I'm not sure if you've heard Getting Geeky with Game Relief, but the next section is AAA. Now don't worry, this is not AAA where if you had a car flat tire and somebody would come and pick you up. This is actually Adventures in Application Acquisition, where we talk about an application you might be using, whether it be a cell phone or a tablet or a video game or even a computer, whatever you want to do. Is there an application you use a lot of?
Okay, so I did listen to a bunch of yours, and I was prepared for this. So, yeah, I mean, directly related to board gaming, I've used something called Tabletopia, which is sort of like Tabletop Simulator, where you can get your whole game online, so that you can get exposed to other testers and other people that want to play. So I've definitely used that. I only really use my phone for phone-related and social media-related things, but I use I use Twitter and Facebook, of course. Mm-hmm. And then I am a pretty heavy video game player still to this day. So if that counts as an application,
yeah,
I would have a long...
I think we talked about Tabletopia a while back ago with another creator. Yeah, is there a video game you like a lot of recently?
Yeah, I mean, I do play a lot of indie games. So in terms of a game that struck me as really cool, I played a game called Inside, which was by the creators of Limbo, which was also a really cool game on Xbox 360 that I played. A really sort of atmospheric side-scroller that tells a really sort of science fiction-y story. I loved that as sort of a simple 5-hour adventure game with some puzzles. And then I also play a lot of mainstream games. So right now, my kid and I both play a ton of Overwatch, which is hard to go anywhere without hearing about Overwatch. So we are definitely addicted to that right now.
Yeah, what can you tell us about Overwatch? I know my son brought it up, but I have no idea what it is. I think I've seen a character maybe from it. What is Overwatch? Overwatch
is basically a team-based first-person shooter done by Blizzard, who has a nice way of making characters that are not, Call of Duty or overly violent or graphic. So it's nice in the sense that it's very well designed from that standpoint. It's a lot of fun characters. It's got a cast of, I think, 26 or 28 characters. And the idea is that it's basically a 6-on-6 game, and each character is entirely different. So it really is cool because you are reliant on your team, and you also are relied upon by your team to sort of do your role. So it's a fun, very fun game.
Cool. I want to say maybe I read an article about Overwatch. Maybe is there somebody who exuberates or kind of has some autistic tendencies?
Yeah, exactly. And maybe I can relate this back to KAPOW, actually, because we talked about this a lot during our character design. You're talking about Symmetra, who, yes, is an autistic character. And one of the other things I love about Overwatch is that they did such a good job of creating a really diverse set of characters. And that was important to us when we were thinking about KAPOW. In fact, I'll give you a little reveal here. The character that's coming out this week, one of our heroes is actually deaf, and her superpower is that she can sign energy that creates sort of nets and snares, and that's her power. And it was important to us to sort of create a good, diverse cast within KAPOW too. So we took some notes from Blizzard.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that reminds you. So you have a deaf hero. That reminds me of RPG playthrough game, a podcast that I've been listening to called the Glass Cannon Podcast, and recently I'm about a year in. I just recently found them, and about 52 episodes in. And recently, one of their what is it? He's like a cowboy. Well, he's a shooter. He's got a gun and whatever. He just recently went blind. And then they had a new character. I don't remember. I don't know what her. She might be a mage. I don't remember what she is, but she recently got turned deaf. So that kind of reminds me of that in a sense.
Yeah, it's great, and I mean, you see it in the superhero world too. You know, with Daredevil, you know, for example. I think it's just it adds so much to the feeling of the game, and I don't know. It's a fun twist, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Cool beans. So let's see here. Yeah. So if you owned the rights to Overwatch, what would be one thing you would do to make it better?
I would nerf Mercy. Is that a fair answer?
Nerf Mercy. What's that mean? Sorry. I guess it could be. I just don't know what that means.
Nerf means make a character less powerful by changing her. So the thing in Overwatch is certain characters can sometimes feel overpowered. It's an endless game of balancing to make them all feel fair. So, you know, that's probably an unfair answer because it's almost impossible for them to do. But I would say maybe new game modes. If I could add anything to Overwatch, I'd add some more game modes. I think there's still a lot of room for them to add different kinds of game modes besides the ones they have so far.
What do they currently have, like in terms of game modes?
Yeah, so they did do a good job of trying to capture the flag. They just figured out how to sort of make deathmatch work, which is just, you know, everyone for themselves. What I'd like to see is they've tried a couple like co-op adventures with the characters where you have a bunch of missions together with other characters. I'd like to see them do more of that.
Cool beans. So I know I don't know much about it, but do you have a particular character that you like to be when you play Overwatch?
Yeah, I have two what they call mains. So Reinhardt is a gigantic fellow with a huge shield that his job is to basically protect his teammates and lead the charge into the objective. So I play a lot of him. And then there is a character named Farah, who is a flying character with rockets, long-range rockets, and she's one of the only characters that can fly, so it's great for mobility. She's probably my other favorite in the game.
Cool. What about your son? Well, first of all, if you don't mind telling us, how old is he?
Yeah, he's 8, and he's definitely taken to gaming, which is great, both video and board. We have a lot of fun together. His favorite character right now is Genji, which seems to be the go-to pick for anyone under the age of 10. Is a ninja character with a sword, so it's hard to beat that when you're 8 years old.
Cool beans. So Minus coming there, I think you might have said something about Connecticut. Minus coming there to Connecticut to stalk you. How would people go about finding you, or I guess other members of your team?
Yeah, so easiest way is probably Facebook right now if you have it. We're 2 Ton Porcupine. That's our Facebook page. We all are pretty active on Board Game Geek. We're always, going to local cons. I mean, there's so many great people doing great things in the Northeast for cons. We're usually at anything we can make it to, either all together or separately. So you can usually find us there. And yeah, we just got our website up, so we're 2tonporcupine.com, and we have a Twitter handle if you do that. So we're available.
Well, there you go. Let's see here. So yeah, we really appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief, and even more than that, you come on prepared. Yeah, it sounds like you listened to some of the episodes beforehand.
I did. Yeah, I really like what you got going on here. It's my pleasure.
Well, I appreciate it. Now let's do this. You probably weren't prepared for this, but I really like constructive criticism. What would be one thing you would do if you own the rights to it to make Getting Geeky with Game Relief a better podcast?
That is great. Oh my gosh. Well, first let me drop the praise. I think the way you ask your guests to intro their game is fantastic, and definitely a nice change of pace. What would I improve? Oh, maybe we could do some sort of cool outro, or maybe there could be some great outro music. I don't know if you have that. I heard some cool intro that you did. Do you have an outro?
Yeah, there's an outro. Did I not leave it on? Like it says that I level up. Let's see here. Yeah, actually, we can do that really quick if you want. Do you want to hear them?
Yeah, I
I
do.
can play them really quick. Yeah, there's two. There's one for if I win a game, which I usually do on the Kickstarters, and then there's one if I, because me and my family, I don't know if you know what they are, but recently we started where Mondays, we haven't got into it yet, but we're going to be role playing together as a family. We're going to start off with Too Many Bones, which is a dice building RPG game we recently backed on Kickstarter and got a while back ago. And then on Wednesdays, it'll be Wishlist Wednesday where we talk to a creator like yourself. And then Fridays will be a family fun day where we play a game and me and the kids review it and whatnot.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it.
So, and usually I end up having to play usually I end up having to play this music right here. So here you go.
All right.
Next week to see if Gamer Leaf and Dreams are respawned.
And it goes for a second longer with the outline music or whatnot.
Yeah, that seems very appropriate.
So yeah, because I usually I get stomped. My wife either kills me or the kids or whatnot. So usually that's what I have to play. And then just because that is the case when we play games or whatnot, I figured I might as well get something nice when I'm not necessarily playing a game, when I'm talking to one of you all. And so this is what we have for that.
Okay.
Or wait, no, never mind. That's the intro. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the intro. So you heard that. So here we go. Here's the other one. Sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah, you gained a level there.
Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.
That's really cool. How did you get those done? Did you record those yourself?
No, I wish I was that talented. I was actually, when they first got made. Well, first off, it was a guy in my church, in my congregation, who he works in radio and whatnot, and so he actually created those for me. And yeah, at first I was really, I felt really unworthy that I wouldn't be able to make a podcast worthy of them. I'm hoping I'm doing an okay job on that.
Yeah, it's fun, man. I've had a lot of fun talking to you, and yeah, not all of us are blessed with the perfect microphone voice. One of my buddies is, and I'm very jealous.
Oh boy, yeah, I don't know how my microphone voice is, but growing up in high school and whatnot, it was always a dream of mine to become like a radio host, and now finally able to do something with that.
Yeah, man, it's been fun.
Cool. So you said the outro music. So we got that covered. Anything else?
Yeah.
Because I really enjoy constructive criticism.
Huh. Well, you're nice. You gave me a nice time to explain the game and promote ourselves, so that's good. I would maybe ask a couple more hard-hitting questions, maybe around some of those hot topics that you hear out there. Is this constructive enough for you?
Yeah,
So,
what kind of hot topic? Sorry.
yeah, so I don't know, if you keep your ear to the floor, there's a lot of talk around the world of reviewers as it relates to Kickstarter. It seems to be a real hot button topic. Or maybe take on something like the woes of Kickstarter, or what's the biggest stress involved with creating the game. Put the designers on the spot and make them break down a little bit.
Oh, like you talk about how hard it is and whatnot.
Yeah, or just what their biggest challenges were, something along those lines. Because I feel like the more designers can hear from other designers what they're going through, it can actually be helpful. To put the positive spin on it.
Cool. Yeah, I know last episode, I hadn't done it before, and I think he kind of just threw it out there, but he struggled with shipping. He did something with his first Kickstarter. It was for the Black Souls episode that we just barely released, but he ended up discounting his game when it first came out. He did that like $10 less, and so he got over 100 messages in which the people were complaining about how they weren't going to pay as much as the game to get the same amount of what the shipping cost.
Oh boy, yeah. See, that's a good example. I've heard a lot of kind of horror stories around the shipping, so that's a good one. And then yeah, the marketing of the game and figuring out how to get reviews. That was all very new to us too. So, those sort of topics could be good. And we would, someone like yourself who talks to a lot of designers, we could hear your thoughts and get your take on it too.
Okay, that'd be cool. So yeah, so I'll have to see what I can do to incorporate that. I really appreciate it because, like I said, I know. According to most people I talk to, a lot of people don't enjoy constructive criticism, but I'm always one for it. So I really appreciate that. And we wanted to thank you for coming on, getting geeky with Game Relief. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your night, especially with it being so late where you are, Carl.
Yeah, you got it, sir. It's my pleasure, and thanks for reaching out and finding us and asking to talk to us. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.